Welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe for more scary stories, or I will come for you. I'd like to thank Jasmine Houston, David Cass, and Anna for rejoining the Curator's Disciples. Your viewership is very much appreciated. If anyone would like early access to my latest stories and an ad-free listening experience, consider becoming one of the Curator's Disciples. The link is in the description below. Finally, a reminder that all of my stories are available on my podcast. The Curator, Dark Web Horror Anthology is now on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Without further ado, today's story, Library of Hatred, by the Curator. I never really thought I'd be the kind of guy to sit down and write all this out, but I guess I don't have anywhere else to put it. My name doesn't matter anymore, not really. For 10 years, I didn't have a name. I was just another body, another number on a sheet. I've been out for a while now, but the memories still stick to me like the stink of that place. No matter how many showers I take, it's still under my skin. I grew up in a small coastal town in New South Wales. My old man bailed when I was 6. Mom worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on, so I was alone most of the time. We lived in this rundown rental where the floorboards creaked when you walked, and the walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors fighting. I learned early on that nobody was coming to save me. By the time I was 16, I was already running with the wrong crowd. It started with petty stuff, stealing smokes and breaking into cars. But when you're broke, crime feels like the only thing that gives you any control. That's when I met Liam Crane. Liam was only a couple of years older than me, but he was different. He had this slick way of talking, like every word was rehearsed. He always had cash in his pocket, always seemed one step ahead. I wanted what he had. We clicked fast. He showed me the ropes, and before long, we were partners in a smuggling ring that moved both drugs and weapons. Liam was the brains. I was the muscle. He handled the deals, the greasing of palms, the smooth talk. I did the grunt work, pickups, drop-offs, collecting from people who didn't pay on time. We spent years building our little empire. I trusted him like a brother. I even took a bullet for him once, when a deal went bad. But loyalty doesn't mean much when someone's survival is on the line. The feds had been circling us for a while. I knew we were under pressure, but I didn't know Liam had already cut a deal. The night it all came crashing down, I was the one in the warehouse moving crates while he slipped out the back. I didn't even get a chance to run. They had me face down in the dirt before I knew what was happening. I'll never forget the look on Liam's face in court. He wouldn't even make eye contact. He handed them everything. Texts, records, details only someone on the inside could know. My lawyer told me not to fight it. Said I'd get 10 years if I took the plea. 10 years. I was 28 when the judge banged the gavel. My life ended in that moment. Prison isn't like TV. It's its own world, its own economy of power and fear. I walked in thinking I could just keep my head down and do my time. That was a lie. The second the gates clanged shut, I felt every pair of eyes sizing me up. I wasn't built for this. I wasn't small, but I wasn't one of those gym rats with muscle stacked on top of muscle. To them, I was meat. The first week, 3 guys jumped me in the showers. They didn't say a word. They just slammed me against the tiles and beat me until my ribs cracked. Then they held me down. I can still hear the sound of skin slapping against skin, the grunts in my ear, the laughter. I stared at the beige tile above me and tried to leave my body, but the pain kept dragging me back. When they were done, they left me curled up on the floor, bleeding from places I didn't want to look at. It didn't stop there. In prison, you either belong to a crew or you're prey. I tried to join up with a group of guys from my state, thinking maybe they'd have my back. Turned out they were just as bad. They'd lend me out to other groups in exchange for favors. A carton of smokes, protection, a cut of contraband. I was a bargaining chip. The guards knew. Hell, some of them made it worse. Officer Rayburn was the worst. He was this big bastard with a gut that hung over his belt, and he loved to watch. Sometimes he'd unlock cells and walk away, knowing exactly what was about to happen. He'd lean against the bars afterward, grinning, and tell me to man up. Every beating left me with something new. Cracked ribs that never healed right. Scars that still burn when the weather changes. Teeth I never got fixed. I'd wake up sore and bleeding, pull myself together as best I could, and go through the motions until it happened again. By the 5th year, I didn't even try to fight. Fighting just made it worse. I remember sitting on the edge of my bunk one night with a sharpened toothbrush pressed against my wrist. I wanted out. I wanted the pain to stop. But then I thought about Liam. I thought about his smirk when we'd pulled off our biggest score. The way he'd slap me on the back and tell me we were untouchable. I thought about him living his life while I was rotting in hell because of him. That night, something in me hardened. I put the toothbrush away. By year 7, I'd built this place in my head where I kept all the names. Every guy who hurt me, every guard who laughed, every person who betrayed me. I carved their names deeper and deeper into my memory, like tally marks on a wall. I didn't know how yet, but I promised myself they'd pay. 10 years. 10 years of being less than human. When they finally let me out, I walked through those gates a different man. People talk about freedom, like it's a gift, but when I stepped out, all I felt was empty. The only thing that filled the hole was the thought of Liam and the others. I didn't want money. I didn't want friends. I didn't want a normal life. I wanted them to hurt like I did. Walking out of those gates didn't feel like freedom. It felt like stepping out of one cage and into another. No family, no friends. 10 years had burned all that away. All I had was the list in my head. I spent the first few weeks drifting between cheap motels, living on whatever money I had left from before the arrest. My parole officer gave me the same speech they probably give everyone. Find work, stay clean, keep your head down. I nodded and smiled, but none of it mattered. The only work I cared about had already begun. Finding Liam wasn't simple. The bastard had a new name, a new life. The world thought Marcus Vale had disappeared, and so had Liam Crane. He'd shaved his head, covered old tattoos with bland ink, and was living in some quiet suburb, playing the role of a family man with a wife and a kid. I burned through my contacts, most of them ghosts or junkies by now. It was an old associate, a hacker named Deke, who finally pointed me in the right direction. Deke owed me for a job we pulled off years ago, and when I told him what I wanted, there was a long silence before he spoke. "You're not gonna like what you find," he said, "but there's people who specialize in curating justice. You want Liam gone? There's only one place I'd even tell you to look. Skin Bandit." I'd heard the name whispered inside prison, usually late at night, like a campfire story. A dark web collective that didn't just kill people, they made art out of them. Books, sculptures, jewelry. I'd never known if it was real or just something inmates told each other to pass time. Deke sent me an encrypted file with a chain of access points, Tor links, PGP keys, and verification codes. Getting in was like peeling an onion, layer after layer of passwords and dead drops. I had to post proofs on hidden forums, old mugshots, encrypted timestamps, even a video of me burning an effigy of my prison ID to prove I wasn't law enforcement. When I finally hit the landing page, my stomach dropped. The site was minimalist, all black and gray, with a single rotating carousel of images. A hand-carved mask made from human skin, a spine turned into the frame of a chair, a book bound in something that still had freckles. Beneath each piece was a name and a date. The tagline read, "We curate the end of stories." I clicked through page after page of portfolios. Each commission came with its own gallery, photos of the victim's abduction, the harvesting process, and the final product. There were artists' notes, written in the same elegant looping script, describing the materials, techniques, and the subject's final moments of contribution. I didn't hesitate. I sent them Liam's details. His new name, old name, photos, address, his entire routine. Payment was wired through a chain of anonymous wallets that made the money untraceable. They promised a personalized curation and said I'd receive my piece in a few weeks. For 3 weeks, I barely slept. Every knock at the door, every shadow outside the motel window, I thought it might be the delivery. When it finally came, I almost didn't notice. A plain cardboard box, about the size of a shoebox, sitting on my doorstep. No return address, no markings, except my name in thick black marker. I brought it inside and set it on the table. I just stood there, staring at it, my palms slick with sweat. 10 years had led to this moment, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The tape was thick, wrapped around several times. I cut it with a kitchen knife. As soon as I pulled back the flaps, a faint smell seeped out, chemical preservatives mixed with something metallic and faintly sweet. It made my stomach tighten. Inside, nestled in layers of black tissue paper, was a package wrapped in jet black leather and tied with a blood-red cord. The leather was cold, almost clammy, against my fingers as I undid the knot. When the wrapping fell away, I saw it. A book. The cover was pale, almost translucent, with faint hair follicles and pores still visible. A tattoo I knew instantly. The faded skull Liam used to have on his forearm had been stretched across the front like some grotesque emblem. The edges were uneven where the skin had been carefully trimmed. The spine bulged slightly, reinforced with what looked like a thin ridge of bone. I opened it. The first page nearly made me drop it. A full-page, high-resolution photograph of Liam bound to a steel chair, naked and drenched in sweat. His mouth was open in a frozen scream, his eyes bloodshot and wide with animal terror. The next page was worse. The skin of his face stretched taut between clamps, a thin layer of muscle still clinging to the underside. His jaw hung open below, teeth bared in a rictus grin. I kept turning pages, each one a new horror. Close-ups of his hands, fingers broken back until the skin split, nails torn off and laid out like specimens. His torso, flayed in precise, numbered sections, each piece catalogued in neat black handwriting. A wide shot of his body on a table, patches of flesh missing, surrounded by surgical instruments. Artist's notes ran along the margins in that same looping script. Subject exhibited high resistance. Dermis soaked for optimal preservation. Tattoo incorporated into cover per request. Spinal cartilage selected for binding reinforcement. Final volume maintains 93% dermal integrity. I turned to the final page.
Liam's face stared back at me.
What was left of it? His body was nothing but exposed muscle and tendon, his flayed skin hanging in orderly strips behind him. His eyes were still open, fixed on the camera, frozen in the moment his body finally gave out. I snapped the book shut, bile rising in my throat. The smell of preservatives clung to my hands. I sat there in silence, the weight of the thing heavy in my lap. I should have felt sick, and I did, but under the nausea was something else. Satisfaction. 10 years of pain, humiliation, and betrayal bound up in a single volume. I ran my fingers along the spine. The bone ridge felt warm, almost like it had a pulse. For the first time in a decade, I felt something close to peace. But it wasn't enough. After the first book, I thought I'd feel done. I thought the hole inside me would finally close. It didn't. The satisfaction I felt holding Liam's skin-bound book in my hands faded in days, replaced by a gnawing emptiness and something new, a hunger. I spent hours just staring at that first volume. I ran my fingers over the uneven texture of his face stretched across the cover, tracing the ridges of the tattoo like braille. I flipped through the photographs again and again, committing every image to memory. I could smell the chemical preservatives clinging to the pages, no matter how many times I washed my hands. The scent got into my clothes, into my sheets. It followed me everywhere, like a ghost. One night, I opened the book to the last photograph and left it on the table. I just sat there, looking at Liam's hollowed-out face, and I started thinking about the others. I had the list in my head, carved deep over 10 years. The first name I added after Liam was Connor Briggs, the gang leader who turned me into a toy my second year inside. I could still remember his laugh, the way he held me down, the tattoos across his back that rippled every time he moved. I sent skin-banded the details. Payment cleared within an hour. 3 weeks later, another box arrived. This one was heavier, the smell stronger even before I opened it. I slit the tape and pulled back the flaps. Inside, wrapped in dark gray leather and bound with the same red cord, was my second book. The cover was Connor's back, his sprawling tattoo of a dragon distorted and stretched across the surface. I ran my hand over it and felt the raised bumps of scar tissue like tiny mountain ridges. The spine was thicker than Liam's, reinforced with several fused finger bones. Inside, the first photograph showed Connor chained to a wall, his head tilted back mid-scream. His eyes were bulging, veins bursting red against the whites. The next page was a series of close-ups, his back being peeled away in wide sheets, each slice exposing wet muscle that glistened under the lights. They'd cataloged his tattoos individually, each section numbered in neat black ink. I turned another page and froze. A full-body shot showed Connor hanging upside down, his skin completely removed, his body flayed to the tendons. His arms were bent backward at grotesque angles, hands severed at the wrists. The artist's notes described how his tattooed back was preserved in full dermal integrity for optimal cover utilization, and that his spine had been left articulated for binding. I closed the book and held it against my chest. The uneven texture of his tattooed skin against my shirt, still warm from the preservatives. It felt good. I ordered more. A sadistic guard named Rayburn, who'd facilitated assaults for years, became Volume 3. His book bound in skin taken from his torso, the spine reinforced with a chain of his own finger bones. Photos showed him screaming into a gag while clamps peeled strips of flesh from his belly, his teeth scattered across a tray like dice. Volume 4 was a man named Salazar, another inmate who'd shattered my ribs during a debt collection gone wrong. His book's cover was stitched from the skin of his face and chest, the artist's notes remarking on the unusually resilient dermal elasticity. Each new arrival had the same ritual: the plain box, the black or gray wrapping, the red cord. I would untie it slowly, savoring the reveal. The chemical stench of preservatives filled my apartment, clinging to the walls and furniture. My growing collection lined a custom shelf I'd built in a spare room, each volume labeled in my own hand with the victim's name and the date of their curation. By the time I had 10 volumes, I'd stopped pretending it was just about revenge. The list kept growing. Names from before prison, business rivals, even a childhood bully who'd made my life hell in middle school. The books became my world. Each one was a piece of my pain, preserved and bound, their silent screams echoing in the stillness of that secret room. I'd run my fingers over the spines at night, feeling the ridges of bone and cartilage beneath the skin, each book a testament to my hate. The hunger never stopped. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just sit in the library, surrounded by the volumes, breathing in the chemical skin stench until it made my head spin. I'd close my eyes and picture the next book, the next name to cross off my list. I told myself it would end when the list was finished, but deep down, I knew the truth. The library of hatred would never be complete. By the time the library hit 20 volumes, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. The man who'd walked out of prison thinking revenge would fix him was gone. What was left was something hollow and hungry, something that only came alive when I was untying another red cord and peeling back that black wrapping. The room I'd built for the collection didn't look like part of my home anymore. I'd sealed the vents, reinforced the door, and lined the walls with heavy oak shelves. Each book had its place, labeled in my neat block handwriting with the name and date. The air in there was thick with the sharp, cloying smell of preserved human skin, no matter how many filters I ran. It soaked into everything. Some of the books were thicker, the spines bulging where cartilage or bone reinforced the binding. Volume 15, a rival dealer named Moreno, had a cover stitched from the skin of his chest and upper arms. The bullet wounds from his death still puckered and dark against the pale surface. I stopped keeping track of how many names I'd sent to Skin Bandit. The list had outgrown the 10 years of pain that had birthed it. I started adding people who'd wronged me before prison, people who'd brushed me off or disrespected me. Petty grievances became reasons to commission new pieces. Each arrival was its own ritual. I'd get the box, always plain, always heavier than it looked. The moment I cut the tape and that chemical preservative stench hit me, my heart would start pounding. I'd unwrap it slowly, savoring the unveiling of each new addition to the library. Texture of each cover was different. Some smooth, some coarse, some mottled with scars or tattoos. I ran my fingers over them like a blind man reading Braille, each bump and ridge telling the story of someone who would never hurt me again. I told myself I was reclaiming power, turning every humiliation into something tangible, but the satisfaction never lasted. I'd spend hours in the library at night, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by the volumes. Sometimes I'd take them down one by one, opening to the first photograph in each. Page after page of faces, frozen in terror, tendons stretched and severed, skin peeled back in long, precise strips. The artist's notes fascinated me, the language clinical, almost reverent, like the people behind Skin Bandit saw themselves as craftsmen rather than killers. Eventually, I stopped leaving the room at all. I'd fall asleep in there, the smell of preserved flesh heavy in my lungs, dreaming of names I hadn't crossed off yet. The list never got shorter. For every name I erased, 2 more took its place. I'd built something bigger than revenge, bigger than the 10 years of pain that had started it all. I'd built a monument to my hate, and I couldn't stop adding to it. One night, I caught my reflection in the glass door of one of the cabinets. I didn't see myself. I saw the books behind me, their pale covers glowing in the low light, the faint outlines of tattoos and scars forever frozen in place. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace, not happiness, but a hollow, gnawing calm. I ran my hand along the spines, feeling the ridges of bone beneath the preserved flesh. Each one was silent now, their screams captured forever in the pages. I know I'll never stop. The library of hatred will never be complete. This is the Curator. I hope you've enjoyed today's scary story. Until next time.